Welcome back to another episode of Activados. We have once again with us Sister Giselle. Thank you so much for being here, for staying here with us. And today, actually, in this episode, we want to talk about something that you're, I would say, passionate about or get questioned a lot about, and it's on, we'll just say media. We'll just say media because it's going to be all types of media, of having it versus not having it. I just got an Instagram page not too long, and I still haven't put a picture of no. Yeah. What questions do you get, and why is it something that you want to dive into?
So I've gotten this question, this exact phrase, so many times that I'm not scared to guess. So I'll have people say, "Hey, G, or Giselle, can I ask you a question?" And I'll say, "Sure." It's kind of weird and random, but I've always wanted to ask you. And I say, "Sure." And this exact script. And then they say, "Do you already know what I'm going to ask you?" And so you're after a while, I'm like,
humor me.
Yeah. But after a while, I just say, "Are you going to ask me about social media?" And they're like, "Yes, how did you know?" And I say, because I get that question a lot. A lot. And I never thought it would be so weird. But I've had people tell me that I'm the only one they know. I think it's kind of becoming more common. I've met several people now where they're like, "No, I've stepped away from it." But I've personally have had people tell me, "You're the only person I know who doesn't have a social media account or anything like that." So I don't know, some people find it very weird. Some people, I want to start off by saying this conversation is not about me demonizing social media or any of the platforms. I don't think it is evil to have that. I think it's a two-edged sword.
Yes.
But I don't, that's not what I preach. That's not what I teach. That's not what I, believe that, it's just, it's a saying, it's horrible. Nobody should have it. So I want to make that clear. But sometimes when I get comments like, "Oh, so then what do you do?" Mm-hmm. I want to ask, are you listening to yourself? They'll ask me, so wait, so then what do you do all day?
But don't you think it's weird that they think it's weird?
Yes.
Because I didn't have social media and just Instagram. And I did it because when we got married, a lot of the places a lot of the companies we use, I had to.
Yeah.
But so that means I didn't get social media until I was 30 years old. And I always thought, I think it's weird that you think it's weird.
Yeah.
Or I think it's weird that you do have social media. How about that?
Yeah. I've gotten that. I've also gotten, man, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I tried for a day and I just couldn't, bro. I couldn't. I can't imagine, how do you do it? And I'm like, it's scary, you who needs to take a break.
But isn't that scary,
yeah,
though?
It is. So I've had social media. I'm not like you who've been lucky enough to never have had it. I had it for several years until I didn't. So I think I know that social media has changed a bit since when I was on it, just even the designs of the apps and how it works, what you can and can't do. But I think I've had exposure to both life with and life without social media. So,
was there something in particular that happened that made you get off of it, or was it something that little by little you realized that maybe this was something that wasn't for you?
Yeah, so I think it's a mixture of both, maybe. So I was able to hold back or not give into the whole MySpace thing. I never had MySpace. I never had Facebook. And then when Instagram became a thing, I was in high school, and I remember making an account and never telling anybody, because in my mind, and honestly, it wasn't about I want to get followers. I remember one of my friends showed me a picture that she took, and it had a really pretty filter on it. And I was like, oh, pretty filter. So I made an Instagram, but it was just just for the filters. And I never followed anybody. And nobody even knew I had an Instagram. And I don't know if you remember or if it became big enough to where you heard about it, but there was also another app called I Am that came out at the same time. And it never took off like Instagram did, but it was kind of the same thing. And I made an I Am too because it had different filters in Instagram. But I never told anybody because it really wasn't about that to me. And no me atraía that side of it. And I remember one time my friend was using my iPad in high school and she saw the Instagram app and she was like, "You have an Instagram?" And I was like, I guess technically, but I don't like use it the way y'all use it. I literally just use it when I want to filter a picture or make it pretty or whatever. And she was like, "Ooh, can I follow me? Like I won't follow you back, but you know, just so I can have more followers." Yeah. And I was like, sure. I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, sure, you know, whatever. So she followed herself through my account. Well, it turns out the way social media works is it's meant to be social, meant to make you socialize with people. So, you know, somebody saw, oh, she has a new follower, and one thing led to another, and people started seeing my account. And so I just kind of started from there. Okay, I started accepting people, but I would follow people back, but I never let anybody follow me because I had nothing to show. It was just for fun. Long story short, it turned out being, yes, a full-fledged social media account. So that was how I was introduced to social media. It was not on purpose, but it kind of just happened. And then I had that Instagram account for all through high school, beginning of college. And I guess it kind of coincided with the time where I left social media, coincided with just this time in my life where I started growing closer to the Lord, started serving. I started learning more about him, about myself, about who he wanted me to be, what he liked, what he didn't like, things that pleased him and didn't please him, and just all this, you know, change that happens when you come closer to the Lord, and the process that you have to go through to become who he wants you to be, all that good stuff. I remember one moment specifically. There were several like this, but there was just one moment specifically where I felt like I'd had it up to here. So I was studying for school. I remember what I was doing homework for. It was differential equations. I was doing my homework. It was like 6 pages long. That homework normally would take me about 6 hours to do because it was just so much. One problem, an answer for one problem, one differential equation would be like 2 pages front and back. That would be the answer. Oh, wow. So it was hard, but I loved it. It was fun. But it's, you know, it's strenuous. Mental energy that's going on there. And I remember thinking, okay, I've been at this for like a few hours. I'm just going to take a break. So I pulled out my phone. I started looking through social media, through Instagram. And by the time that and I feel like if we're all honest with each other, I know that just doesn't happen to me, but it's kind of like you get into this weird zone. You get tunnel vision. You forget about what's happening around you, and you get so caught up in what you're looking at that I had this moment where I kind of okay, I finally got out of it. And by the time I looked at the time, it had been like an hour and a half. And the person's page who I was on, again, I wasn't looking at garbage, although that's another branch of this conversation. I wasn't looking at anything I shouldn't have been looking at, but it was just a person, like an influencer's page. And I didn't know her, and I didn't follow her. But I had looked at somebody who tagged somebody, and I looked at that person who tagged somebody, and I ended up on her page after going down a rabbit hole. And I felt stupid. I felt like I'm looking at her life, living her best life. She's selling these products, and guys, look at here, and we just made past this mark, and we're thriving, and thank you for your support. I'm watching her live her best life, but I just wasted an hour and a half of my time when I should have been doing homework. And I just felt silly. I felt ridiculous that this person, I was never going to meet her. I didn't know her. She didn't know I existed. But I was finding out all about her life. And I just felt silly. But more than that, I really felt like it wasn't pleasing to the Spirit of God. I don't know what the word in English is, but in Spanish is like contristar el espíritu. Like I just felt there was... And I couldn't tell anybody about how I felt because there was nothing explicitly evil about what I was doing. Yeah. I wasn't looking at pornography. I wasn't watching things I shouldn't. I was just wasting my time. It was time consuming. And I felt frustrated with myself. Like, just how you could have almost been done with your homework by now, but you're wasting your time, whatever. Moments like that had already been happening, but that was one that I just remember the most because I sat there at the dining room table for a good minute and was like, what should I do? Like, I don't have the willpower to say I'm not going to look at this. There's no such thing as looking at it for 30 seconds for me. I get that everybody's different. Some people just have this crazy willpower. They're like, this isn't, I don't care about it. I don't even check my feed. I don't ever post anything.
Usually the way it's done is that once you see one thing,
yeah,
you know, with the algorithms and everything, it's usually done with the purpose that you're not going to take 30 seconds. Yeah. You're going to take another minute, then 5 minutes, and then you look at something else. And, oh, that's pretty.
Exactly.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh,
I need to save this. This is cute. Screenshot here. And so that's what I meant about how I don't think it's inherently evil, but I do think if we're all honest with ourselves and we can agree on certain aspects of social media that maybe aren't the best, especially for somebody who's trying to live their life for Christ. So for me, that happened, and I remember contemplating, asking the same questions. Like, I couldn't imagine my life without it, because on there I had connections with people that I hadn't seen in years, that maybe I knew in middle school, high school, but I really still did consider them my friends. They would DM me, or they would comment on my picture, say, oh my gosh, Giselle, we miss you so much, have you been? And that would lead to conversation. I would find out, oh, they just went to this school, or they just graduated from this, or they're getting married, and I honestly feel like I couldn't let that go. I was never going to be able to let it go. And then around that time, that was when Instagram came out with the ability to not delete, but deactivate your account. So you could only, before that, you could only delete it. And once you delete it, it was gone. And once it deactivated, I was like, God, was that you? Is that you? So I looked it up, what it meant, and so you could deactivate it to everybody else. It would look like you delete it, but all you do is log back in, and you have your account again. And I was like, perfect. This is for me. I need a detox. I need a break. So I deactivated my account. And it was around the beginning of either my sophomore or junior year in college. I don't remember. And I remember deactivating and saying, this is good. School's starting. I'm not going to have this distraction. I need to focus on school. I need to, honor the Lord with my time. And I'm going to detox. I'm just going to let go of all that stuff, the junk that I've filled my mind with and all that. And I did it. And I don't remember if it was hard or not, if I'm being honest, because it's been so long. I imagine that it was. I imagine that I felt antsy and felt like I need to know what's happening. But I stuck with it. And I remember thinking, you know what? The semester's almost over. I went through the semester. I'm going to, so the way college semesters work, if you remember, it always ends like in the beginning of December. So you still have a good month before Christmas and New Year's and all that. So when school finished, I was like, you know what? I'm so close to the end of the year. Why don't I just wait this year out? And then I'll get it back in January. So it'll be like my New Year's resolution. Like, I'll start fresh New Year's. January, I'm not going to let it take over my life. I'm going to limit my screen time. I'm not going to waste so much time on it. So finished school that semester, December, then mid-December, then New Year's came. And January came, and I said, you know what? I've been doing good. I don't want to, maybe I'm not fully detoxed. I don't want to step into it and not be ready. So why don't I finish this semester? Oh, no, why don't I wait till spring break? So I didn't get back on social media. I started the winter semester. Spring break came, and I said, I'm so close to May. Let's just wait out till May. I was really scared that I didn't want to step back into it and would just be the same thing all over again. I really wanted to detox. I really felt that I wasn't pleasing the Lord with my time. I felt guilty asking him to bless my hands, bless the work of my hands, give me knowledge when I was wasting my time. That's just, that's my experience. So then May came, and I said, you know what? I really want to enjoy my summer without the pressure of social media. So why don't I wait till I start school in fall again? And literally I just never got it back after that. I just kept saying until one day I didn't even think about it anymore. One day I didn't even crave it. I didn't wonder. I started falling in love with the life that I could live without having that aspect of social media, that I just didn't want to go back anymore. I didn't crave it. I didn't want it. I loved it. I loved the me that I was becoming. I loved what I was finding out about myself. Without that, then with it. And so people always ask me, why did you leave? But I feel like there's two questions I can answer, because there's a reason why I left, but they're not the same reasons why I stayed away. Because I learned things about myself. it was a process. It was a journey. So what I believe now is only looking back that I can see what I've learned and, what I've realized. And how the Lord used that experience in my life to show me other things.
Yes.
Because what we were talking about off camera is one thing that I've learned. I thought I was good. Like, man, good for me. I let go of social media. That was hard. I know so many people can't do it. Yeah. But I started realizing that it was also a character flaw of mine was just, and I think if people are honest, a lot of us struggle with that, is not being intentional with our time, is wasting our time, period. Just period.
Yes.
Because entertainment, whatever you use to be entertained, it feeds, it makes you feel good. That's what the word literally means. It entertains you, makes you feel good in that moment. It's what you want. You like watching a show, you like reading a book, you like even exercising, I believe, can become a waste of time if you don't prioritize, or if you start doing it for other reasons besides health and you get obsessed with that. Anything can easily become an obsession. Mm-hmm. And that's what I learned after. So I thought, oh, I'm good. Then I realized that it was very easy to find other ways to waste my time. Absolutely. So, for example, I love to read. And ever since I was in college, I didn't really get the chance to read like I wanted to, because why am I going to waste time reading when I have homework to do and all that stuff? Well, I started reading, and, that's good, right? It's virtuous. Not everybody reads. Everybody tells us you should pick up a book now and then. So good for me. Like, who's going to tell me that I'm doing wrong by reading?
But what are you reading?
Yeah, number one. And number two, I would read for hours. Like, I can read for hours. Oh, but that time I didn't have time to pray. Mm-hmm. I never read the word. Mm-hmm. Fasting for 4 or 6 hours, that's crazy. I would read the same amount. So God really started like showing me that it's not just one thing. It's an outlook. It's a viewpoint. It's a positioning of your spirit, mind, and soul that has to move. It has to change. You have to come to an understanding that I need you to honor me with everything that you do throughout the day. And so the phrase that comes to mind that I think sums it up, that I've learned throughout this process, is that good things can become bad things when they keep you from the best thing. Yes. Right? So, I
love that.
That when I heard that, I felt like, hey, that's what I've been learning. That I couldn't put it into words, what I've realized, but that is it. Is that good things become bad things when they keep you from the best things. So it's not about, some people think there's like this very bold, obvious line. There's all the good things, all the evil things. Mm-hmm. You only stick to the good things. And if it's evil, then you can't do it. Only if it's evil is it a sin. Only if it's evil, purely evil, is it wrong. You have to stay away from it. But the truth is that that's not two categories. It's good and evil. It's, does it bring you closer to God or does it not?
Yes.
Is it godly or is it not? Because, you can watch, I don't know, VeggieTales is the only child show that comes to mind. There's nothing inherently wrong with VeggieTales. It's a Christian kids show. Mm-hmm. But if you sit down for 4 or 6 hours to watch VeggieTales every day, that's not doing anything with your relationship for your relationship with the Lord.
And I think you have to kind of ask yourself, kind of like what you said, either it's social media or whatever, you can do it for 4 or 6 hours, no problem. Can you read the Bible for 4 or 6 hours without, you're falling asleep? I think that's when that comes into, you can do all of these things for a long period of time, but can we pray for that amount of time? Can we read his word? Can we listen to preachings and actually you're paying attention to the preachings, or estás bostezando? It's the whole timing thing, because at the end of the day, like when you think about it, we only really go to church. If you go to every single service, you might be going to church like 4 hours, maybe 5 hours a week. Mm-hmm. If your church has a lot of services. Mm-hmm. But we get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, what are we giving to the one that is giving us that time?
Exactly.
And like you said, it doesn't matter. You can be not doing, doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something bad or not, but your time with God. And I think that goes back to building an altar at your home. Exactly.
So all these things, like what you just said, it took me leaving social media for me to be able to see that, to realize things about myself. Hey, Giselle, these problems run deeper than just deleting your Instagram. Like, you have issues that need to be dealt with. But the Lord used that to kind of break through. Let's get through the superficial and get through what's really happening. And like what you just said, we all have the same amount of time in a day, and you give your time to something. Yes. That was also a realization that I had. Everybody give your time to something. And it's as simple as, if that something isn't the Lord, or, you know, most of it is something that's not the Lord, then it's a bad investment of your time, because it's the only, investing our time in the kingdom and in the Lord and seeking him is the only thing that comes back with a reward that surpasses our reality here on this earth and our time here on this earth. So there's just so many things that I've learned about myself. So many things I love about not having social media now. And so, you know, I know some people might think, oh, it's she's trying to sound self-righteous by talking about I love social media. But really, that was what opened the door to me realizing about how messed up I was in so many other areas, and how much I needed to fix and to clean. And the Lord just started really dealing with me and convicting me about, excellent, you got that out of the way, but we still have a whole bunch of other things we need to work on. And that, with that out of the way, that being like an obvious problem out of the way, I was able to see that there were a lot of things that I needed to be more intentional about. And just, so media in general, like what you watch, what you read, what are you feeding yourself? I found that I love the Lord, right? I have a relationship with him. I want to serve him. But I had a hard time, I guess the word we use is witnessing to people or talking to people. Or if there was a young person at church that wanted advice, it's like I would be at a loss for words. Like, I knew what you meant. I know what you need. I know that what you need is the Lord. I'm hearing you, but I find like I just couldn't find the words, like the words of life that they needed. And one of the things that I've learned, or that the Spirit of God, just through prayer and through self-reflecting and all that, was, well, you can't give of what you don't have. So sure, you're not filling yourself with purely evil, like explicitly evil junk, let's say, but are you filling yourself with the word of God? Because if those words aren't what you eat, what you swallow, what you meditate on, how are you going to share that with somebody else when somebody's dealing with depression or anxiety, or you encounter a non-believer, somebody who's an atheist? What weapons do you have to fight that? Because your words have no impact. It's the word of God that changes. It's the word of God that breaks, that molds, that shifts, that makes things happen. But if you're empty, you don't have anything in your arsenal, you don't have any weapons to fight back with, what are you going to do? So it goes beyond just, you know, letting go of social media. I realized, okay, if I want to make an impact in my church, with my friends, with the people who I love, I can't pour out of what has not been poured into me. So also this realization that everything that you do, you're feeding something, either your flesh or your spirit. There's no other option.
You know, there's people that will say like, no, it doesn't. I can watch, I can read. It does absolutely nothing to me. But I've like seen videos, or I've always, for some reason, one time I saw this one interview of this one actor that was in a horror film. But I just wanted to see the interview. Yeah. And they started talking about things that they felt. And like, just once I started hearing about it, I was like, whoever says that it doesn't do anything to you, it does, because that's the purpose of it. Yes. Like, it came from the people that were there. Mm-hmm. And they were, that's the purpose of it, to give you fear, to give you this, to give you that, to give you, you know, I've never liked, even as a little girl, I've never liked horror films. I've never. And then growing up, I'm like, I'm one of those that feels like there are spirits, there are things that we have that will come out, and you know, and some people are like, no, it's not. But once you hear it from them, the people that were there, that are not Christian, that have nothing to do with God, and I'm like, that they're literally telling you that it does. The things that you watch, the things that you hear, the music that you hear, and what you read, like, because when you're reading, a lot of people, especially readers, you start picturing things in your mind. You're reading it, and you start. That's why when books become movies, you know, a lot of people are very skeptical, because they already picture
that's not how I imagined it.
What the characters look like, what they did. So when you're reading, it does go into your mind. You start picturing things. It does. It it does do something to you.
It does. And I think that that's the first step, is we just need to be honest about that. It's okay. It's okay to, we all experience that. It does something to you. Reading about fiction, it's not garbage, but it's about a world that doesn't exist. That's the world you live in every day. You think about it, you dream about it. You're living in fantasy. Watching a show, you're living with the characters, watching the characters, what's going to happen next, anticipating. It does something to you. And what I, whenever people ask me about this, I tell them, you're not a garbage disposal. It's not something in and then it just comes out. You're a human being. You're made up of, a spirit, a mind, soul, heart. You have emotions. You have a brain. And that's what we do as humans, is we take an input, we receive an input, we process, and it affects how you function. It affects how you think, how you believe. And to those who say it doesn't, well, I would be worried, because that means you've been desensitized to receiving that input of junk, of garbage. And by garbage, I just mean anything that doesn't bring you closer to the Lord, because if it doesn't bring you closer, by definition, it's bringing you in another direction. And I don't care what direction that is. If it's not toward the Lord, it's not worth it. So,
and I don't think we're also saying like 24/7. You have to be praying and stuff.
Yeah,
but if the only prayer you get
is at church,
or the only Bible, and actually I literally just read a quote from Tony Evans, and it's kind of harsh, but he said, like a car without gasoline does me no good. It doesn't work. Same as a Christian without the Holy Spirit. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's true. I can have the nicest car. I can have a Maserati, but it has no gas, or no charge for the electrical people, people. It does you no good. You can't move from point A to point B. And we're the same way as Christians. If we're not feeding ourselves, if we're not filling ourselves with the Word, with His Spirit, with communion, just, spending time in His presence. So again, you're right, and glad you brought up the point. I'm not saying that we have to be in a monastery 24/7, always praying, always meditating, but going back to what I said about how we each have two natures, your spiritual nature and your flesh, and everything that you do, from every conversation that you have with somebody, everything you watch, the music you listen to, what you read, whether you want to admit it or not, or whether you want to face it or you accept it or not, it's going to affect you. You're feeding either one. You're either feeding your spirit and strengthening your spirit, or you're feeding your flesh and strengthening your flesh. Yes. So we expect to go out to this world to make an impact, to be a good Christian, to serve, to do things right, to do things well, have the Lord bless us, bless our plans and all that. But we never do anything, or not that we don't do anything to feed our spirit, is that we spend more time feeding our flesh. Yes. And they're always constantly fighting one another for power over what we think, what we do, what we act, what we say. One is going to direct. Either you're led by the Holy Spirit, which is, filled your spirit, or you're led by earthly thoughts, fleshly thoughts. And the only way to have the Spirit win every time is by feeding it. That's like, going to an arm wrestling competition. You need to use your right hand. That's what you need to do to win, but you spend 6 months training your left hand. It doesn't make any sense. So we ask questions, why can't I hear God? Why is He not guiding me? Why don't I have any revelation? Well, maybe your spirit isn't sensitive enough to the voice of God, because you haven't, it's dying, it's weak, it's malnourished, you haven't been feeding it. So, and I think the reason we brought up social media was because that is what usually takes up more time for people nowadays. Yeah. I mean, you go out, that's one of my pet peeves, going out to a restaurant, going out to eat, and people have their phones out. Like, if we're here, we're here. If you wanted to text me, then I'm gonna go home and you can text me all day long. But it's just the one thing right now that really is taking
saturates like our whole society.
Not even young people's. No, it's also the older people with their Facebook.
You want to find out how to use Facebook? Ask an older sister. You know what I'm saying?
It's not just young people. It's not. But I think that's when what we're saying is, just kind of look at where your time is going. Yeah. Is it on a screen? Is it on anything else? Or is it on the Word of God? And also your family, so you can watch 2-3 hours of YouTube videos, that sometimes are just funny videos. You're not even it's not even that you're watching preachings, but you can't have a 5-minute conversation with your mom because I have nothing to say. Yeah. To the woman that gave birth to you. Okay. That's when I feel like you have to start questioning, and then some people live their life for social media instead of just living their life.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
And that's one of the things that, well, going back to what you just said a couple of seconds ago, I heard somebody that said that exact example. I don't have anything to say to talk to people. And they said, well, yeah, it's because your mind is filled with so many other people's thoughts that you watch all day. You can't even think for yourself anymore. But going back, that's one of the things that the way I can describe it, because I've been on both sides. I've had social media for many years and then I didn't. I feel that everybody who has social media, the way I can describe it is like we have a set of goggles on, lenses over our eyes, and we see the world through those lenses. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, it's true. Yes. I think it's there. You see the world just differently. You have that, when you go out. I've even heard it. I've heard it from friends. And again, it's not a bad thing. So I'm not saying it's horrible and I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's true and it's present for those who participate in social media, have an active presence. When you go out for somebody's birthday, you think twice about your outfit because somebody might take a picture, somebody might post it. There's no such thing as just going looking like you just rolled out of bed, because what if they take a picture? What if they post it? What if somebody wants to? And I used to think that, and I wasn't obsessed about my image. I wasn't post crazy, but I was mindful of that. Like, am I really matching? Because if they post it, or I can't wear this on Sunday because I already wore it on Friday, and they're gonna see.
Oh yes.
Or just little stuff like that. That it's like a filter. That when you think about things, it goes to that filter of having social media. And the only way to realize that you have that filter, and this kind of sounds like an Inception type thing, the only way to realize that you have those goggles on or you have those lenses is by taking them off, which means letting go of social media. Because it wasn't until I let go of social media that I could look back and see just how much of an impact and influence it had on me that I didn't realize. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's evil. I'm just saying that it's there. It's there, and it's only by stepping away that you're going to be able to, it's like the glasses come off and you're like, whoa, I used to think about it this way, or I used to feel this way, or I don't feel this kind of pressure in this area of my life anymore. I don't, it's just, it's nice. There are many nice things about it. And I would encourage anybody who's maybe thought about taking a break, I would encourage you to do it and then be intentional and say, Lord, I'm giving you this time, I'm giving this up, and I ask that if there's anything you need to bring to my memory, if you need to show me something, you need to show me something about myself, that you take this time to do it. I would encourage them to do it. I think it's worth it. I love, you were talking about going to dinner and not being on your phone. Yeah. If ever on my phone, sometimes people are like, what are you doing? You don't have social media. What could you possibly be looking at? And I'm like, the news, I don't know, Bible app, I don't know.
I'm looking at something.
But it's true. And that's another thing, is being away from social media for so long has also helped me kind of remove that fear of like always feeling or needing to feel like I'm busy or looking like I'm busy. Mm-hmm. Like I have no problem now going to the store, waiting in line, waiting to get my oil changed or whatever, and not being on my phone and just literally just people watching. Yeah. People watching, observing, looking. And I know that for some people that's like an anxiety. Like you have to look busy. You have to you look like nobody wants to talk to you, nobody wants to text you, or you have nothing to do. And that doesn't bother me anymore. I can be at the dinner table or going out to eat and everybody on their phones. And again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying they're on their phones and just be there staring, looking, and it doesn't bother me. And it used to. But there are many pros that I would say to leaving social media. Another thing that I noticed is one of my favorite things about not having social media is I love how empty my mind and heart are of like white noise. Like I love going to church, going to an event and walking in and not knowing anything about anybody. Mm-hmm. Walking in without any prejudices or, preconceived notions about who people are. Yes. I love walking in and, being able to genuinely meet somebody and say, hi, I'm Giselle. And I say, oh, cool. So where did you go to school? Oh, that's great. Oh, you just got married. Congratulations. Oh, fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I studied this, and having those conversations and not looking at a girl and saying, oh, I saw her on social media. I know she's married this. And actually she was married before, but now she's with another guy. And that's not that dad's kid. And not knowing all this stuff, because it's human.
The whole ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, it's human nature to be curious, because I don't want to say judgmental. It's not judgmental to see somebody's life on social media. and then see them and then wonder about it. It's just curiosity. But I think
it starts with curiosity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it can lead you to sin in your mind.
That's the dangerous
to judge.
part.
So I love being able to go and just go for what I go for. I don't know who broke up with who. I don't know who did what. Wow, she's ministering up there. He's ministering, and I saw what he posted last week. I have none of that. And I could just go and say, Lord, fill my mind. I'm going to worship you. And I know that for some people it's not a problem. Like social media doesn't affect them that way, but it did for me. It did. I had like a lot of noise, a lot of stuff going on in my mind going into church and just seeing, I remember he posted this. Oh yeah. And not being able to focus. So I love that aspect about it. Just being like,
and I think when you do have it, like I've always just like I was telling you, I got it because, there's certain businesses I wanted to use and that's how they came. When you do have it, it's just being aware of how much time you're spending, what you're posting. Are you trying to help others?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it can be very helpful. I know now with social media that is, it is useful if you know how to use it correctly.
It can be, yeah.
What you're posting out there. Are you trying to help people out? And also, how does it make you feel? But if you're living your life through it, that's when you need to kind of just step back and see why.
Yeah.
Because some people do live through it.
Yeah.
The likes is what makes them, and eso se termina. It's not forever.
Yeah.
What should have you keep going or how you feel is what the Lord says about you, and it's not about what other people.
Yeah.
So I think it's just being careful how much time you spend on it,
being responsible,
what you use it for, what you put out there, and your purpose for it.
Yeah.
I think everything we do is with a purpose. If your purpose is to help other people, or a lot of the churches, there was one weekend when we counted 5 churches that had pupusa sales, and it was live. Which one do we go to? To help people out. Well, that's a good purpose. Yeah. You're helping somebody out. But if you're doing it because you need the praise, you need that's when you have to kind of step back and analyze
exactly
what's going on. Or if you go on there, because some people call it curiosity, because it does start like that, but you just do it just to hate on people and criticize and judge, that's when you need to step back and be like, okay.
Yeah. If it's not helping your heart.
If it's not helping your heart, your mind, your spirit.
But you said it, that you have to be mature enough to analyze and to be real with yourself. Like, hey, this is not helping me. It's not helping me grow in any way. I do look forward to the likes. If I post something and in 2 seconds nobody's liked it, I delete it because, that means it was an ugly picture. You have to be honest with yourself and bring those things to the Lord and say, God, I need you to help me realize that your approval is what matters the most.
And do you mind what people, like, for example, one time my husband was like, let me see your Instagram. Let me just scroll up. And he's like, Mara, you have food, dogs, cats, little pigs, like, and wedding stuff still. And I'm like, that's the algorithm on there. And then it was like Bible verses here, kitty cat, best barbecue, another Bible verse. Look at my pet duck. And he's like, this. I'm like that. I mean, I have nothing to hide. I'm like, you're gonna find nothing. Still wedding stuff on there.
Yeah.
Animals and food and the churches, IPUH churches, and. So that's another thing. If that's something that you need to hide,
if you feel like people can't,
like you say, you keep saying this, and it's true. We have to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah,
we just have to be honest with ourselves.
At least with God. If you don't want to talk to anybody, be honest with you and God.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be social media either.
It can be other forms of media, entertainment,
absolutely,
things that just take up your time. So I do want to make sure that, again, I want to just reiterate, I'm not casting judgment, throwing stones, because I think it's a process. We're all learning, we're all growing, we're trying to be better. And I don't think social media is inherently evil. I've seen people that have used it for good.
Absolutely.
I've seen how it's helped churches, grow, promote. I've seen people that it's helped with their business. I know people who met their spouses like that. So I know that it can be used for good. This was just my personal journey, where the cons overrode the pros, and it wasn't worth me keeping it, what it was taking away from me.
And I think it was more about the time.
Yeah. It was
what's consuming your time.
Yeah.
And if God only has 2 minutes out of your 24 hours in a day,
something has to change.
Something has to change.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what, because I think a lot of times when people do episodes like this, immediately people are like, "Ugh, yeah, why not that?" They're gonna say. But I think it's more about just what do we do with our time?
Because that's a point. Yeah, good. Reiterate that point. It can be anything.
And how much time are you giving to the one that's giving you that time?
Exactly.
And that's really what. And I'm glad you even brought up reading books and stuff, because some people are like, "There's nothing wrong with that."
No, you can waste your time. You can waste your time. Really, we get so creative with wasting our time and not having to pay. Not having people are very creative. Let me wash all the restrooms, fold clothes. It's so just being intentional with your time and being intentional with what you feed yourself, because I do think, well, it's Bible. It matters what you feed yourself, what you feed your mind, your spirit, because then you want to spout out, these fire sermons or release anointed music and worship like nobody's watching, but you have nothing to give. You haven't been filled with those words of truth, with
and
the
when
Holy
you
Spirit.
When you say feeding yourself, that's what you see, what you hear,
what you read, what you listen. Yes, music
it's
is a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic, but it
matters.
It does matter.
It matters. And another thing, what I would think about it growing up, or really just throughout this whole process, one thing that just came to my mind is I asked myself, and it's really because I was reading a blog or something, and I asked myself, if God, I could see him, maybe Jesus as a man, came down to spend one day with me, would I go about my day the same way that I normally do? Would I say, "Hey, God, sit down, we're going to watch Grey's Anatomy for 4 hours. Oh, God, cover your eyes, don't watch this part." Is that what I would do? Would I feel embarrassed that he would look at my Spotify, my Apple Music playlist and say, "Let's listen to some music"? Would I hesitate in giving him my other Apple? Wait, let me change the play. So my question is, if those things aren't bad, there's nothing bad at watching that, then why wouldn't you do it? If that's your answer, like me, that I would said, no, I wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't you do it with Jesus?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? If there's nothing bad about it, if there's nothing inherently evil. And the truth is that while we can't see him as spirit-filled followers of Christ, we're meant to carry the glory of God around on our shoulders. We're meant to be vessels that take that same spirit around everywhere we go. So it matters what we watch. It matters what we listen to, because we're filled. It's not just any spirit. It's the Spirit of God. He's holy. He's pure. And we need to learn to have reverence toward that. Like, I'm a vessel. I can't just be letting anything come in. And that really changed my perspective, thinking about if God came to spend a day with me, what would I do differently? Or would I keep everything the same? And if the answer is no, I would change it up. Why? That's how I'm supposed to be living every day then.
The funny part is he's watching us.
Exactly. So, exactly. He's there anyway.
Joke's on you. I'm here.
Exactly.
The whole time. But sometimes we do have to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think it matters what we do with our time.
Yeah. And
even us, I think here in Activados, we always feel like that's a big thing for us. We never want to waste anybody's time. We want to, whenever you do, spend your time with us, that it is a blessing. And that's what we're really talking about. Just whatever you do, don't make sure you spread out your time. Yeah. Spread out your time evenly. And if you're putting your time in something, a lot of your time, that's when you analyze, what is it? What's the purpose of it?
And why?
Yes.
Because I'm not saying you're an evil person for wasting your time. For me, one of the other things that I realize about myself is I'm a very non-confrontational person, but even with my own life, like to face the hard things, the things that have to get done, the homework, the studying, the planning, whatever it has to be, I would hide behind other things like reading and social media. I would hide behind that to waste my time, thinking that my mom and dad would always tell me, like, the things you have to do are still going to be there. Well, we don't know why you're prolonging it. But so that might be somebody might be struggling with that. Like, I just have a hard time facing the day head on, and I hide behind wasting my time, because it's easy to live in a world that doesn't exist for a little bit than to work hard and do what you got to do, be the good Christian you have to be, serve God, go to school, work. It's hard. And sometimes to avoid that, we let other things consume our time. So I understand that. But, God is faithful enough to to help us through that and mold us into who we're supposed to be.
So I think to finish this episode up, I think, be mindful.
Intentional.
And be intentional with your time. And if you see that there's something that's taking up a lot of your time, like you said, look at the purpose and the why. And sometimes if you got to step back.
Yeah, have the courage
it's
to step
okay.
back. Yeah.
People have done it. It's worked out. And it's gonna, I think that's when you realize your life becomes much better. Much, much better.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Giselle, for being here with us and for sharing with us. And finally, for anyone that has that question, you can go to this episode of Activados. You can just tell them, go on YouTube.
Yeah,
I answered it. I send them a link. Let me send you the link whenever anyone comes up to you. Can I ask you a question? Let me just send you the link. What's your phone number? Let me send it to you. Exactly. I answered it on there.
Got you.
But thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone for spending the time here with us at Activados. We hope we are a blessing to everybody's life. Activados. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Like the video, comment. Tell us also maybe any subjects you want us to talk about or anyone you want to see here on Activados. Also follow us on Instagram. We really appreciate you. God bless. God bless.